Hi everyone, and welcome to our virtual production class. My name is Rich Hansil, and I'm a producer, director, and DP that's made shows for Netflix, ABC, NBC, Louisiana Film Prize, and a lot of others. I'm also the director of education at the Robinson Film Center in Shreveport. And since the RFC is all about independent film and film education, I wanted to share some filmmaking tips to y'all. Now, a lot of people think you need all of this to make films, but you don't. All you need is this. That's right, a phone. Now you may be saying, wait, just a phone? But I see all these behind the scenes shots of big time movies being shot on Arri Red and big film cameras and trucks full of lights. And it's true, you do see that. But if you look around, you'll also see big shows and series being shot on phone. And if you haven't heard of this guy, you should check him out. Steven Soderbergh is the youngest director to win the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and he's also won an Oscar for Best Director, winning against himself because he was actually nominated twice in 1 year for Best Director, along with an Emmy for Best Directing and a whole bunch of other awards and nominations. His films have made $2.2 billion, and that's just the films, it doesn't even count his TV shows. And he has shot his last 3 films on iPhones.
You want to get back on the court. And as your agent, I want to get you there. But we are in a lockout.
It was really a creative choice. Like, it wasn't a budgetary issue. I could have shot it on anything. I felt like this movie would be well served by my ability to put a lens anywhere I wanted in a matter of seconds. That this kind of movie needed a kind of physicality that a small capture device can provide. So it was a legitimate, to my mind, a legitimate creative choice. And I look at the movie now, and I don't think it'd be as good if I'd had to shoot it in a conventional way. There are things about it that I think are necessary in terms of the style of the film that are there because I was working with a camera that's that big.
That's right. A guy with more Oscar nominations than all of us put together, and someone that can use any camera he wants and spend pretty much as much money as he wants, chooses to use a phone to make movies. So if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for us. Now you may be thinking, sure, but he probably has a bunch of fancy gear to make it look better. Well, not really. Soderbergh uses a tripod, he uses LEDs, mostly a light mat, but that's not super important, a couple phones, and then Velcro or gaffer tape to hang the phone in places he can't put the tripod. So, it doesn't take a ton of gear to make a movie the same way an award-winning director does. And there are actually a lot of advantages to using a phone. You can easily put it all kinds of places that require complex rigging for a big camera, so you can get shots you might not be able to otherwise. Okay, so you can use a phone for your camera. But what about lights? Don't movies have trucks full of lights and whole teams to get them set up and make them look beautiful? Well, sure, they do. But back to Steven Soderbergh and the Light Mag, he uses a fancy film version. But the whole point of that piece of gear, called a fixture, and if you want to be official, any piece of film lighting is referred to as a fixture or instrument, is to just give a nice even light. And there are a couple of easy ways to do that with cheap tools, and maybe even things you already have. A very famous cinematographer is a guy named Roger Deakins. Take a few minutes and look him up, we can wait.
Reality doesn't have to be naturalistic. It doesn't have to be exactly the way light is. You want to create a coherent world for the audience that they believe. The biggest challenge is any film though, is just creating a kind of world that hangs together for the whole, entirety of the film. It's the overall look that is the biggest challenge, really.
Okay, cool. You probably didn't have time to read over all the films he's done and all the awards he's been nominated for, but one thing you can look up really quick is one of his favorite ways to light, what he calls cove lighting. Now, cove lighting is just wrapping a set in muslin and either bouncing lights off it or shining lights through it. You can go to a specialty gear site and order very fancy film muslin, or you can just go down to your local craft store and pick up some bleached or unbleached muslin for cheap and get the same thing. No time to go to the store? Well, you can use a sheet or a tablecloth. And instead of film lights, you can take a work light, available at any hardware store or maybe even in your garage, and it will give you a very similar look. Take some time before you shoot to experiment with the different looks you can get by bouncing or shining the light through and moving the light closer or further from the sheet to see what works best for you. Great, no sheets, no work lights, that's fine. One easy solution is what we call practicals, which is just a fancy movie way of saying the lights that you already have in a room. This lamp is a practical, for instance. One of the really nice things about shooting on a phone is that they're not made with the expectation that you'll have fancy film lights. They're made to look good using everyday lights, like our friend this lamp. And don't forget, you can put a phone most anywhere, so don't be afraid to experiment and get some cool shots. Now, for exterior shots, there's everyone's favorite lighting instrument, the sun. Now, the sun may not always be in the place you want, but you can use a few simple tools to get the light where you want it. You can buy a fancy reflector like this for anywhere from $10 to $40. But you can also just hit your art class or local craft store for some poster board. A white one lets you bounce a little bit of sunlight, a silver and gold one lets you bounce a lot of light, and a black one lets you provide what's called negative fill, taking sun or reflected light away. So there you go, guys. You have the same camera and Oscar-winning directors using the same sun everyone uses, and a very, very similar interior lighting setup that another Oscar winner uses to light his scenes. Make sure to experiment with all of these tools before you start filming your film. That way you'll know what you want and how to tweak it on the day. Most of all, have fun and get filming, because the only way to get better at making films is to make more films. And if you already have all the gear you need, there's no reason not to make all the films you can. Thanks again, guys, and come see us at the Robinson Film Center for film and TV education and the best in independent, local, and award-winning films.
What I want to say is, I want to thank anyone who spends part of their day creating. I don't care if it's a book, a film, a painting, a dance, a piece of theater, a piece of music. Anybody who spends part of their day sharing their experience with us, I think this world would be unlivable without art, and I thank you. That includes the Academy, that includes my fellow nominees here tonight. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for this.